So today's topic is about, I'm just taking a basic this thing overview of CI/CD, how it works and all. So exactly what is CI/CD? Okay, so AWS CI/CD is a set of practice and tools that enable developers to automate the process of building, testing, and deploying software application. Okay, so CI/CD is a continuous integration and continuous deployment. It is an automated process for deploying code on any server or S3 bucket or Lambda. So we don't have to do anything manually. We just first need to set up a CI/CD pipeline. Okay, so that will take care of deploying your code to the servers. The CI part is continuous integration. So it consists of like the developer will generate his code on his local system. He will work on his code. Then he will push it to the code commit, which is the repo. The same code can be tested using the code build. Okay, so this process comes under the CI, which is continuous integration, and this is fully automated process. And continuous deployment will come under the release of that code. Okay, deploying it on the instance, and then we can monitor whether everything is working fine or not. Okay, so that part comes under the continuous deployment. Okay, so it helps in achieving faster, more reliable application deployment with less manual interventions. Okay, so the same thing, like, so we don't have to push code every time manually. So the CI/CD pipeline will take care of it, and it will automate the process of deploying it to the servers. Okay, so AWS provides a suite of services that makes it easy to set up CI/CD pipeline for your application. So there are four services which can be used to automate this process. Okay, so we will look into it in detail. Okay, in the upcoming distinct slides. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Okay, so here are the overview of CI/CD services which we will be using, okay, to automate this process. So there are four services. The first one is code commit. Okay, so code commit, a managed Git-based version control system that allows you to store and manage your source code. So code commit is a service where we will store our code, okay, on AWS. Second one is CodeBuild, a fully managed build service that compiles your source code, runs, tests, and produces deployable artifacts. Okay, in CodeBuild, we can directly test our application without deploying it on the servers. Okay, so with the help of CodeBuild, we can test our application. Okay, so next is Code Pipeline. A code pipeline, a fully managed continuous delivery service that orchestrates the entire CI/CD pipeline from source code to production. So with the help of code pipeline, we can automate the full CI/CD process, okay, from source code till the deploying it onto the server. So code pipeline will take care of these things. Okay. Next one is last one is code deploy, a fully managed deployment service that automates the deployment of your application to EC2 instance, Lambda functions, or on-premises server. So with the help of code deploy, uh, we can configure like where we need to deploy our code. Okay, what things will be installed on that server. Those things will come under the code deploy. Okay, so each of these services can be used independently, but when used together, they form a powerful, fully automated CI/CD pipeline. So each of these service has their own roles and responsibilities. Like, okay, and we can use these services independently. Okay, but when we combine all these services, it will create a automated process for this deployment. Okay, so now we will look into these services one by one in detail, like, okay. So first one is code commit. Okay. So code commit is a managed source control service that makes it easy to store, manage, and version your application source code. So code commit is a service where we will store our code. Okay. So the thing is like, so developer can use a git, okay, to push this code. Okay. So directly developer can push this code from the git, and it can be stored in the code commit. Okay. So code commit is a place where we will store our code. So second is like, code commit supports Git based repositories and can be integrated with popular Git clients such as Git CLI, GitHub Desktop. Okay, so the same thing like, so a developer can directly push the code from the Git repositories to code commit. Okay, for this automation process. So for this, there are few things we need to configure in the AWS also, like we need to generate the HTTP link to push it to the code commit. Then we need to create user authentication to push these things. Okay, so I will show these things in the this thing practical slides. Okay. So next is like, code commit provides a highly available and scalable repository infrastructure, allowing you to store any amount of code without worrying about the capacity constraints and scaling issues. Okay, so there is no limit like to store your code in a code commit. Okay, so but I guess to store a single file there is a limit of 2 GB. Okay, so 2 GB is a max file size, single file size which we can store on the code commit, but there is no limit to store the full entire code. Okay. The third last thing is like, code commit also provides security features such as encryption at rest and in transit control, access control, and compliance with various industry standards and regulations. Encryption means it is using a KMS for the encryptions. Okay. So that means even if someone gains access to a repo, they won't be able to access the code without having the actual key. Okay. So these things are there. These are the security features which code commit provides. Okay, so it also uses SSL TLS encryptions and all. Okay, so next one is code build. Okay, so code build is a fully managed build service that compiles your source codes, run, test, and produces deployable artifacts. Okay, so using code build, we can directly test our application, whether it is working fine or not, whether there are any bugs, whether it is giving any issues. So these things we can build before deploying it on the server. So once it is checked over here, if it is working fine, if it is not giving any issues, then we can push this application to the production or staging or dev server. Okay, so code build support a wide range of programming language, build tools, and operating system, allowing you to build and test your application in a variety of environment. Okay, so code build support mostly popular languages such as Java, Python, Node.js, and many more languages. Okay, which can be used to build an application without deploying it to the server. Okay, so also it supports multiple operating systems, like almost all operating system, I can say, like Linux, Mac, Windows. Okay, so these OSs we can use. So code build can be easily integrated with other AWS services such as code commit and code pipeline, allowing you to automate your entire CI/CD pipeline. So while building the application, the code can be fetched from code commit Okay, and it can be deployed to the servers with the help of code pipeline. Okay, so next one is by using code build for your build and test process, you can save time and efforts by automating repetitive tasks, ensure consistent and reproducible builds, and improve the quality and reliability of your application. So this means if we are building it if we are building application using the code build, so we will get idea about how our application is working, whether it is giving issues and all. So this will save lot of time. Okay, before deploying it on the server. So there won't be any issues like, so after deploying in the server we need to check for issues and all. So this will save lot of time. Okay, so if we are using the code build to test the application before deploying it to the server. So next one is like code pipeline. So code pipeline is a fully managed continuous delivery service that orchestrates the entire CI/CD pipeline from source code to production. Okay, so with the help of code pipeline, we can automate this process. Okay, from code commit till deploying it on the server. So with the help of code pipeline, it will automate the process. Like if any developer pushes any changes to the code commit, it will directly trigger to the code pipeline, and code pipeline will directly create automated process, and it will deploy it on the server. So there is no need to deploy everything every time manually on the server. So this process will be automated. Okay, so code pipelines allows you to define and automate your release process, including building, testing, and deploying your application. It is the same thing. Okay, so it will just create an automated process. A code pipeline integrates with other AWS services such as code commit, code build, and code deploy, as well as third-party tools such as Jenkins and GitHub, allowing you to customize your pipeline according to your needs. So with the help of code pipeline, okay, we can fetch code from the code commit, we can deploy application from the code build to the server. We can deploy this thing application using the code deploy uh, to the servers, like, because in code deploy and all we are defining where we need to deploy our codes and all. Okay, so code pipeline plays a main role here. So where to fetch the code, from where to get the application, and where to deploy it. Okay, so next one is code pipeline provides a visual interface for monitoring the status of your pipeline and tracking changes to your application. Okay, so this means we can code pipeline can give us information like the commit manages, so which commits are done, then the author who edited that commit and all. The time of deployment, if it is failed or it is successful. So all these things we can check in the code pipeline itself. Okay, so we can check these logs. So next one is code deploy. So code deploy, AWS CodeDeploy is a fully managed deployment service that automates software deployment to a variety of compute services such as Amazon EC2, AWS Fargate, AWS Lambda, and on-premises instances. So while generating an application in code deploy, we need to specify where we need to deploy our code. Okay, so this is the service where we will mention like where we need to deploy our code. So whether it is a EC2 instance, whether it is a Lambda, whether it is a on-premises instances. Okay, so there is a file called expect.yml in which we need to provide all this information, like what will be our root directory, what applications we need to install after pushing this code, whether we need to start that application, whether we need to stop that application. All those things we need to provide in that file. Okay. For the code deploy. Also, we need to install code deploy agent on the EC2 instances to work this process. Okay. So second thing is like with code deploy, you can deploy code changes in a safe, reliable, and repeatable manner, reducing downtime and increasing efficiency. So with the help of code pipeline, we can automate this process. Okay, so whenever any changes are pushed, it will directly replicate it to the server. Okay, with the help of code pipeline. The service integrates with other AWS services such as Code Pipeline, Cloud Formation, and CloudWatch to enable end-to-end automation for your software delivery process. So the same thing, like so, with the help of Code Pipeline, it will push all the changes automatically to the server. The next is Code Deploy provides detailed report and metrics about your deployment, enabling you to quickly identify and troubleshoot the issues. So same like Code Pipeline, Code Deploy also provides a lot of information regarding your deployment. Okay, at what stage it is failing, at what process it is failing, so that we can identify those errors and we can resolve it. Okay, and we can troubleshoot it like so. It provides all the information about the deployment, so we can track everything. Okay, so next is I will show you the overview of CI/CD dashboard and the services on the AWS. Okay. First, we will go through the code commit. So code commit is a place where we can store our code. Okay. So here we can create one repo. So I will just create one repo over here. So I will just give it as test and nothing we need to add. So I will create one repo, test repo. So let's add one file over here. Create one file. So author name we need to provide and email address. So commit message we can also provide. Okay, it's a test and save changes. So this is our repo like, okay, so which we have created as test, and this is the branch. So by default it will take main branch over here. So we can create more branches also from here. Okay, so we just have to create branch. So this is the place where we will store our code, okay, in the code commit. So second one is like build, okay, code build. So here we need to create and so here we will create a application which will fetch code from the code commit. Okay, so I will not configure anything. I will just show you how these things we can configure like. Okay, so to create and applications, we just have to create a build project over here. We need to give a project name. I will give it as test, description as test. Okay, so we don't have to change any build patches over here. So here we need to select from where we will fetch our code. Okay, so in this example, we are using a code commit. Okay, so we will just select a code commit repo. We will create a select it as test, which we have created just now. Next, we need to select a branch. So right now we have only one branch, which is the main branch. Here we can select a commit ID also. Okay. So right now we don't have anything. So this is the default one which we have. So additional configuration is not required. Environment, we can select a manage image, okay, which is managed by AWS. Also, we can select a custom image or the Docker image if we have. Okay. So right now we will select a manage image from the AWS. Here we can select the operating system which we want. Okay. So right now I will select Amazon Linux 2. Runtimes we can select as a standard. Image we can select latest one. Image version, we can select the latest image. Environment type is a Linux. Okay, so here we will create a new service role. Okay, so we don't have to do anything over here. If we have already any service roles, then we can select it from the existing one. Then so this is the one. So here in build spec, to build an application using the code build, it requires one file called buildspec.yml, okay, which includes which node version that application which will require, then which command we need to use after the deployment, whether we need PM2 or we need to start the application. So these things will come under this build spec .yml file. So right now we have not added anything. So we need to put this file inside the root directory. Okay. And also we can directly mention those command over here. But the best practice is to use the file. Okay. So next is like batch configuration. We don't need to do anything. Artifacts, no artifacts. Okay, so here is the CloudWatch logs, okay, which we need to configure. So we can create one group in the CloudWatch and we can mention over here. So whatever logs are there with respect to the code build will go under this group and stream name. Okay, so if we need to check anything, we can go into in CloudWatch and we can check over there any logs. Okay, and we just have to create a build project and it will create application and it will directly build that application, and if there are any issues then it will fail. So based on the logs then we can troubleshoot the issue. Okay, so this is regarding the code build project. So next is like code deploy. Okay, so this is one of the important service, okay, in the CI/CD. So here we need to create an application first. Okay, so we will check what is there in the applications. Okay, so I will just create one application as test platform. Okay, so here now we need to select on which platform we are going to deploy our application. Okay, so here there are options like EC2 on premises, AWS Lambda, and ECS. Okay, so right now what we will do is we will select EC2 instance as our deployment platform. Okay, and we will create application. So next thing is like we need to create a deployment groups. Okay, so here we will mention we will just give a deployment name as test. Service role, right now we don't have any service role. Okay, uh, so next is like deployment type. We need to select in place. Then environment configuration. So Amazon EC2 instance we need to select. And from here we need to select EC2 instance, okay, where on which we need to deploy a code. Okay. So right now I don't have any instances over here created. So that is the reason it is not showing here instance. Okay. So so in this group we need to mention on which EC2 instance we need to deploy the code. Okay. So here we will select key name as name, and here it will show the instances. Okay. So from this list we will select we need to select EC2 instance. Okay. So next is like install AWS code agent. Okay, so we can select from here the default one. Then deployment settings, we need to select a default code deploy all at once. Then load balancer, whether you need to use load balancer or not, we can select it from the here. So in this case, we won't use load balancer, and we just have to create a deployment group. Okay, so it will create a deployment group. In this, we are mentioning like on which EC2 instance we are going to deploy our code. Okay, so this is regarding the code deploy. So next one is code pipeline. So here we need to create an pipeline. Okay, so where we will mention from where it will fetch the code, and to which at which location it will deploy our code. Okay, so I will just create. I will show you just test. Pipeline name we will give as test. We will create a new role, source provider here. So now here we are taking code from the AWS code commit. So I'm selecting here code commit. So it will get code from code commit. Then we need to select a repo name as a test, branch main. These things we will keep default only. Then we will select next. So if we are building our application using the code build, then we have to select over here the code build options. Okay, and it will give the application name, and that we need to select. So right now we don't have any application which is created using the code build. So I will skip this stage. Okay, and skip it. So here deploy provider we need to use code deploy. Okay, so here we will use the application name and code deploy name. So right now we don't have any code deploy group which is created. So these things we need to create, and we need to set up a pipeline. So what will happen is like whenever any changes are posted in the code commit, this pipeline will trigger, and it will automatically deploy your application to the servers. Okay, so this is the process how CI/CD works.